Is ETH money? Is ETH money? This is a question that has been around forever. It is debated regularly on Twitter and I guess on every other place in the world. And so what I'm doing today is I pull in all the arguments, pro and contra, for the state of the debate, what we have right now. So at the end of this video, you should get an understanding of what is the basic definition of money, what are the reasons currently to consider ETH as money or not as money, and we will get a little bit of a better understanding of different places where we consider money. So I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, as always, you can write into the chat, let me know what you think. Okay, so this question, of course, has been around forever, and first we will need to agree on the basic definition of money. Thankfully, it has been around forever, and so we will pull it up here right now. And typically when we talk about money, we say it's a unit of account, it's a medium of exchange, and it's a store of value. So this is discussion number one that we need to have. And then, of course, we always also need to differentiate between money versus currency. So I get these mixed up quite often, but I'm getting better over time. And so let's look a little bit into this. So what is the difference between money and currency? Currency is something tangible. Typically, when we talk about currency, we talk about banknotes, we talk about bars of gold, such things. So something that is hard. And then money is more of an abstract concept. So cash, bank account money can be money, derivatives, anything that you can move around. So we have this difference between the abstract thing, which is money, and the specific concrete thing, which is currency. So now we talk about cryptocurrency, and we can start to ask a question now, is it tangible or not? It is not physically tangible, you cannot touch it. But if you, for example, take something like Bitcoin and you take the assumptions that it is hard in the sense that it has a capped supply, you might tend to think it's currency. So I guess it's a little bit more of an abstract discussion at this point. But yeah, so everything that is currency is money, but not everything that is money is currency, right? So let's go to our basic definition here, and that is for money, it's a unit of account, it's a medium of exchange, and it's a store of value. So unit of account is something that you can, for example, see on OpenSea. OpenSea is the NFT platform, and if you look at the NFTs that are listed here, they are priced in ETH. So biggest NFT platform on Ethereum, and what we have is NFTs are priced in ETH, so it is a unit of account. It's what you measure the value of an NFT in. You could, of course, measure the same NFT in dollar. So then we have a medium of exchange. Medium of exchange is the thing you use to move stuff around. In the case of NFTs, it's true. You can also use it for all kinds of other things. So when you use the money as a medium of exchange, I give you money, you give me the thing, it's a medium of exchange. And store of value is it's valuable and it keeps its value. So my idea is let's not stay in the abstract discussion too long, but let's make a little bit of a pro and contra list. And on each side of the argument, we will just list, is it money or is it not money? Why do we have this discussion? I think we have this discussion because we want to understand if there is, it comes to our basic understanding of, can we attribute some kind of intrinsic value to an asset like ETH? And this would help us understand, is it valuable in the long term? Is it only short-term speculation? And how do we consider those things? So let's consider the pro side. Why do people say that ETH is money? This comes down to what you can do with ETH. And ETH allows you to buy block space and to buy transactions on Ethereum. So the most basic thing you can do is you can buy block space. Buy block space. And what that means is it is first of all, block space is measured in GUI, it is measured in ETH, and it is the medium of exchange. in this context, it might even be the store of value because it's the only thing that allows you to buy the block space, right? So buying block space is the very first thing. Another pro argument is that there has been a monetary tightening for ETH since the 2021 upgrade, 2022 upgrade. And what I mean by that is that until that point in time, ETH has been quite inflationary. So when we look at the supply of ETH, maybe I should have prepared the curve, but it was something like, okay, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. This is the supply, right? And then we had the activation of EIP 1559, which changed the monetary policy of ETH. And so suddenly we had this line basically going flat, maybe a little bit down, a little bit up, but basically turning flat. Why is that? ETH actually changed its monetary policy and it introduced burn mechanics. So it changed the logic by when ETH was being paid for transactions, and then it introduced that ETH is actually burned. And this is often considered to be a dividend to ETH holders. So monetary tightening, which introduced the notion that it's actually not infinite supply, but there is actually a line where it's sort of stable, right? And this gives people the perception of a stability. It makes it more of a store of value, and it stabilizes the whole thing. Now, we will come a little bit later back to this argument, but this actually didn't hold up true for too long. So let me put that curve to the side, and then we discuss it later again. Okay, and then of course it's an on-chain unit of account. So on-chain unit of account, and what I mean by that is a lot of liquidity is measured in ETH. You have liquidity pairs in ETH. You have NFT pricing in ETH. When you look at the OpenSea floor, it is measured in ETH. Yeah? And then maybe one last argument here that will also guide our discussion. It's an institutional wrapper. So that means ETFs. ETFs. So this gives it a store of value respectability. Okay, so these are the pro arguments. Now let's consider a little bit the contra arguments. What does speak against that is money? And I would say that the first argument here is the reality of how is it really a unit. So while it is true that you measure things like NFTs in ETH, there is a lot of stuff on chain that is measured in USD. So for example, OpenSea introduced this option. I'm not sure where it is in the settings, but basically in the visuals, you can even change the floor price here to dollar. So unit of account is a flexible thing. And on every platform, you can change the unit of account what is more relevant to you. Now, if you ask people, what does, I don't know, bread cost for them or milk or whatever they're buying, they will typically answer you in their native currency. People from the United States might answer in US dollar. I will answer in euros. So the unit of account reality is that people are not considering their daily costs in their lives as Bitcoin or as ETH or anything. Now, the second thing is volatility, of course, which means it's not really a store of value if there is too much volatility going on, and it is considered a risk asset, right? And this is also why many people use it as investment, because they're expecting it to be volatile and go up in price. And then, so this ultrasound money argument that we had here, where we had this monetary tightening, which basically also introduced the notion of an ultrasound money, right? And what they meant by ultrasound money, the proponents of this is that they said because there is now ETH burn going on, and you have a stability here in the price, that this is ultrasound money. And this a play of word on sound money, and now this is ultrasound money. The problem is this is relative. It's a conditional. Why is it conditional? Now, there has been, who is paying the fees? A lot of the transaction volume of Ethereum moved to layer 2s, and so they are paying fees, and they have been paying millions of dollars per year in fees. Now, of course, that's inconvenient and you want to have cheaper fees. So what Ethereum developers did is they actually reduced the prices for the block space. And so the result that we're seeing is that because block space got cheaper, suddenly there was not enough burn, and we see a slight increase now in the supply again. So this ultrasound money reality is actually conditional. It depends on the circumstances of the changing monetary policy, how features are being developed, how Ethereum is getting more efficient. And when it's getting more efficient, it means that suddenly there is, again, an increase in the supply of the tokens. So last argument that we have on the contra side is layered risk. And what I mean by that is that many users hold staked ETH or wrapped stake ETH because they want to keep a claim on the staked yield. But what they are actually doing is they're staking risk. And so what you can get from that is you can increase the chance of a bank run. You're basically having a pegged asset. So that speaks to the contra side, because suddenly you put additional risk on top of it. Okay, so these are the pro and contra arguments that you typically have on both sides of the argument. Is it money or not? How do we look at this situation now? Is it money or not? I think the easiest way to think about it is when we look at the basic properties of money and we say its unit of account, its medium of exchange, and its store of value. This is to some extent true. So it's not binary. It's not binary yes or no. It is true to some extent, and it's true to some amount, and it changes over time. And what that means is, my explanation is, yes, it is money, but you have to ask, how useful is it as money? You could consider every cryptocurrency as money and ask, yeah, is it a unit of account? Maybe in like very limited circumstances, if it's a meme coin. Is it a medium of exchange for a meme coin? Maybe not, but maybe they're adding it as utility. Is it a store of value? Unlikely. So each cryptocurrency or coin or token has a different degree of its moneyness, about how much it is money or not. And to ETH, it is true on-chain, but not so much off-chain. So I think this is how we can think about this in a representation of where is it money. And this is something that I think gives us a lot of perspective, because inside Ethereum, it is money. It is used for NFTs, it is used for liquidity, etc., etc., etc. It is even outside of Ethereum, it is some form of money because it's wrapped into an NFT and then it's traded. But not so much, right? So in a typical world, when I meet you, I will very likely transact with you in dollars or in euros. But then again, people, when they meet and they're a fan of a cryptocurrency, they start exchanging in their own tokens. So at current conferences, I've been meeting people and I've been exchanging DOT with them. I've been saying, hey, can you invite me for a beer? I pay you in DOT or something, right? So I think that's the quality that we're seeing here. That's the quality that we're seeing here, is that every currency has a different degree of moneyness, and this is how we should look at it. Now, what we can do with that kind of information is we can look at how strong is a currency, because if we Ethereum, the discussion that they have been going on forever is about layer 2s, about the moneyness of ETH on layer 1, on layer 2, and everywhere else. So layer 1, layer 2, and then everywhere else. And what we see is that, of course, on Ethereum itself, it has a high degree of moneyness. But then layer 2s quite often charge in their own token. Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, etc., etc. Starknet, Eigenlayer. So they are introducing their own currencies or tokens, and they have to have a reason to strengthen their own currency, which always popped up this discussion of ETH alignment. Is there an ETH alignment between the layer 2s or not? Now, this discussion of ETH alignment between layer 1s and layer 2s was the source of a lot of battles and keeps to be, right? Now, I think what it teaches us is that the long-term sustainability of a token as money will be very dependent on how strong it can grow its own domestic economy. And this has very close relationship to how nation states are working. Typically, a nation state is most concerned about how its currency is working in the domestic economy, in their own economy. It might be true that it's considered in outside economies. So if you use it for foreign settlement, but in the end, it needs to keep your own economy running. And it is the thing that the state charges taxes in. So the thing that gives a currency power is the power of the state to charge taxes in its own currency. That's the ultimate power. And if you do not pay your taxes in the state's currency, they will apply force and they will force you in some way. They either put you in prison or they force you to pay in the state's currency. And the same is true for blockchains, where the force that is being applied is you can pay with the currency if you want something to happen, if you want an information to settle on the blockchain. So I would say, maybe as my personal learning from this is, the moneyness of a cryptocurrency comes from its ability to force transactions, right? So I would say that's the most basic level of definition you can get, is the power you can get from a cryptocurrency is you can pay for transactions. And then you have your own domestic economy, and that defines the strength. Imagine in your country, you're not paying in, I don't know, dollar, euro, whatever your currency is, but you pay in whatever. You pay in Bitcoin or ETH or DOT or whatever. What it would mean is that the economy in your country would be weakened, because suddenly the money of your country would not be in demand. It would be weakened. So that would mean you have maybe less opportunity to get that money if you want to pay taxes. It would weaken the currency in trade with other countries. Thank you. I would pay a subscription for this. Thank you. You can like and subscribe for free. So the money. So okay. So I think what we have to think about is the domestic buying power. Domestic buying power. The domestic buying power of a token. The domestic buying power of the token is what defines its strength. And the more the token is used in the economy, the more strength it gains, because it increases utility. You can take the token and you can go somewhere and buy something useful. I can take my money and I can go to the supermarket and I know that they will accept my money. So the state forces every store and every business in my country to accept that money. It applies as force to accept that money. Now in crypto, we don't have that forcing power. We cannot force protocols to actually use a certain token. I mean, of course, the protocol could force everything building on top of it to use this token, but in essence, it's only true to get transactions on chain, not anything else. So there's little forcing power, and this is actually a very good aspect, because Web3 is here to give us freedom from intermediaries, freedom of choice, and free us from anything that forces us to denominate in a certain currency. But it also puts us in front of this question of how do we give strength to a currency? And I think this is a problem that again leads to the base of this discussion, where you have maybe an economic upswing when a lot of smart contracts are being used in Ethereum initially, and then this gives a lot of buying power, and then this gives an upswing to the ETH price. But then over time, the transactions move off-chain, they move to a layer 2. And so suddenly the transaction volume moves to other layers, and they capture the fees and the revenue. So less value accrues to the ETH token. And so the discussion that it puts us into, or air cryptocurrency, is what moat is there for an economy for a token? Because if eventually all the transactions can move off-chain to a layer 2. And then there's even competing layer 1s that are offering data availability or compute, maybe at cheaper prices. If bridges become a reality and there can be a lot of movement between those chains, in terms of I can just take my money and move to another chain, and I can do it very flawlessly because of bridges. It's very frictionless. It allows capital to move very freely. It turns into a race to the bottom for this basic ability to force transactions. So let me write this down. I like this. If capital can move freely with low UX friction, because you have bridges and capital mobility, it reduces the value proposition of native L1 currencies. Why? Because DA and compute are a race to the bottom. Okay, so we have a race to the bottom for these resources. We have a race to the bottom for these resources. And that makes these native currencies weak in a certain sense. The power comes from the network effects. Or let's say the strength comes from network effects and centrality. Network effects and centrality. And what I mean by that is, let's consider you have something like Ethereum. And Ethereum is very central right now in crypto. Everyone tries to have a bridge to Ethereum. So we have Ethereum, we have Solana, we have Cosmos, of course. We have Polkadot, Cardano. Cosmos is multiple chains, of course. We have Avalanche. Now, what are all of these ecosystems doing first? First of all, very first of all, they're building a bridge to Ethereum, not to another ecosystem. They're not saying, I don't know, Cardano guys and Polkadot guys are not saying we want to bridge to each other, right? What they are saying first is we want to bridge to Ethereum. Everyone wants to bridge to Ethereum first. Why? Because they have the biggest capital accumulation and the biggest network effects right now. So the strength of Ethereum today comes from its centrality and network effects. The strength comes from network effects and from the centrality, and only then are networks Cardano, and only then are networks starting to bridge to other ecosystems, right? So okay, maybe Solana is the second strongest, right? So okay, now we want to bridge to Solana too, etc. Yeah, so you get the point. So I think what gives a network a strength and a moat in the future is how much centrality can it build. So the follow-up question we can ask is, where does centrality come from? Where does centrality come from? And it comes from, I would say, it comes from good trustless bridging, good UX, frictionlessness. It's good trustless, frictionless bridging. It comes from co-processing. So co-processing is a little bit of an abstract concept, but think about it like this. Imagine you want to get something done on Ethereum. It's fairly expensive. You have to pay for the smart contract execution, and that is pretty expensive. So what you are doing is, ideally, you would put it on a layer 2. And that, in essence, is co-processing. Imagine you have a computer and you have a processor and you have a graphics processor. So the graphics processor is a coprocessor to the main processor, to the CPU. GPU is a coprocessor to the CPU. It helps the CPU get graphics done. And so layer 2s are a coprocessor. No, not necessarily. But you would have a transaction cheaper on a layer 2 than a layer 1. So you could send an instruction to a layer 2 to get a computation done and send the result back. Or you could send an instruction to another ecosystem, get the computation and get the result back. Now the question is, how much can you trust a layer 2? How much can you trust another ecosystem? And typically you have the idea of a security umbrella. So a layer 2 lives under the security umbrella of Ethereum. It's eventually secured by Ethereum. Polkadot is a security umbrella, and all the parachains are secured by Polkadot. And Vitalik a few years ago made this argument that you will have more closeness between all the units and chains within a security umbrella, and you will have more domestic activity between those chains than between other ecosystems. And so co-processing is this idea that you have a distribution of work within an economy, and there is a place where work can be done cheaper. Work can be done cheaper in certain places. So it's in a way, it's a distribution of labor argument. It's a distribution of labor argument. You have or from the capitalistic side, it's the marginal. No, what is it? Certain countries are better at certain things, right? So if you offer like a good infrastructure for co-processing, and you can co-process certain things really good, it helps you. If you have strong economic actors, businesses, and if the businesses are doing really good, this tends to accumulate capital. So strong domestic economy. I think it comes down to that. That means strong economic actors. Economic actors doing good. It all comes down to how good is business in your economy working. And business right now is working really good in Ethereum. Business is working really good right now in Solana. And then everyone else has their advantages and disadvantages in how good they're doing in their business. So is ETH money? Yeah, ETH is money that's simple. Is DOT money? Is Solana money? Is Avalanche money? Is Cosmos money? Cardano, to some degree. But in a way, it comes down to the question of how strong is the economy. How strong is the economy? That's the ultimate question. How strong is the economy, and how much moat does it have? And then you can ask questions. Is ETH money? How strong is the economy? How much moat does it have? And then it comes down to economy, right? So this is the properties of an economy. Is, do you have good trade hubs? So do you have strong domestic economy? Do you have trade hubs? Do you have good trustless bridging? Do you have infrastructure for Do you have infrastructure for trade, for bridging, for infrastructure for co-processing? Are you a good business partner? Is it possible to do business in your economy? That's the questions it comes down to. Yeah, I wanted to do this exploration to see where how we can think about this, and I would be really keen to hear your thoughts. And I'm going to close this down this discussion with a tweet I wrote today about the whole issue, because this has been going on for quite some time. Ooh, I wrote a lot of tweets today. So let me put this in. Okay, so the ETH community has been discussing forever if ETH is money or not. And here we see this property. ETH's big advantage is it is used heavily on the on-chain economic activity. So it is in demand. It gives it demand, and it gives it utility as medium of exchange, unit of account, and store value. But this sustainability, the moat, is not given. USD is stronger, and every ecosystem works to become more efficient. And more people want to denominate and want to use as a unit of account the dollar than the native currency. We recently started this discussion in Polkadot if we should introduce a euro stablecoin, right? So even having our own unit of account that we use in our countries is a discussion we're introducing. Hey, can we have euro stablecoin? So I think the more efficient an ecosystem gets and the more it looks for adoption, the more it wants to cater to its audiences. And that means also, because of its technological flexibility, catering to the unit of account that these people are having. So as chains become more performant, efficient, user-friendly, and bridging becomes safer and more trustless, the moat of a single currency becomes weaker. So in the near term, ETH is excellently positioned, even to become stronger money as Bitcoin, because it is the stronger trade hub, because it is the place that has the centrality. Everyone is bridging to Ethereum, not to Bitcoin. So it has good network effects. And this gives it an overall centrality as a crypto trade hub. Similarly, the strength of the US dollar is its centrality and its network effects, right? So any cryptocurrency that wants to position itself as strong money needs to think about how it can build centrality and network effects for trade settlement. And then I share a few ideas on how we can do this on Polkadot. And so this is what I'm gonna close out with today. So maybe this is a separate question. How can we make dot money? How can we make dot money? I tricked you. You came for the ETH money discussion, and then it's ending with how can we make dot money? You can replace this with your own currency. You can replace this with your own currency and just click ask. So how can we build a strong economy? How can we build a strong economy? And how much moat can we build? So centrality and network effects. These are the things we're looking for. Okay, so let's look into the demand driver. Okay, we have bridging, we have hyperbridge, and this should put us at the center. And let me visualize this for you, because I think this is important at this point in time. So what we want to have is Polkadot here, and then we want to maybe have it as a circle. Let me draw it. Yeah, we do a circle. But what color do we do? White. White is better. I'm gonna draw it. Okay, so there's gonna be a big circle, and that's gonna be Polkadot. And Polkadot is bridging to other ecosystems. So, of course, there's Ethereum. You know what? I'm just going to copy the other ones. So, and now we're going to replace this. Move them out. Soup. So, just to draw this picture of what we want to see. So, and maybe we put them all on one side because there is one port with which we are connecting to them, which is Hyperbridge. So Hyperbridge and Snowbridge and Snowbridge are our connecting portals, and with them we reach out to these other actors. Yeah. So this is what we have here, and then you have what is also, I think, very important is hydration. And Polkadot Hub. So these are the starting points in the economy. Hydration, because it's just the dominant DeFi protocol right now in Polkadot. Polkadot Hub, because this is the place for cross-chain orchestration. So, and I think this combination here, what Hyperbridge is building with Intents, what Hydration is building in terms of the Fed protocol, and what Polkadot Hub is building in terms of this multi-chain orchestration, allowing you to have smart contracts and connect to everything via XCM. I think this is going to be very crucial. And then you have all the parachains. Origin Trail, like lots of parachains. But all these parachains allow you to tap into certain features, to tap into AI, to tap into supply chain, to tap into gaming, to tap into NFTs. Too many. Too many. So this is how I see things right now, and how does this connect? It's a little bit of a disconnect. I had a little bit of a disconnect here, but how does it position DOT as money? The idea is here you want these parachains to use DOT as money. This connects a little bit to the other discussion that we're having about economic growth incentives in the other video. I'm going to link to it. And once you have these parachains using DOT as money, you have a strong economic base. You have a strong domestic economy. You have Polkadot Hub as a point around which you can organize all of these things. And then you have Hyperbridge as an intent infrastructure. You have Hydration as a trade hub. And so there is a demand to trade with you as a partner, which gives you centrality among the broader crypto ecosystem. And then within Polkadot, you have Polkadot Hub, which is going to be fairly central, which is going to be fairly used. And so you have trade with the outside world, and you have a trade internally, right? So I think it comes down to this, and this is what I'm going to end the video with: strong economy, centrality, and network effects, and from this comes the mod. And other than that, it will be a race towards the bottom in terms of what you can charge for fees for DA and compute. So the fees you can charge is not gonna be the essential thing. How much you can deploy the token in the economy and make it useful in the economy is what will be essential and is what we will be charged by. Okay, I'm gonna end the discussion here. Thank you if you followed until here. I think this was helping me organize my thoughts a lot, and I will work to put this out in a more condensed format. So thank you again for being here.